Before you start having any kind of question marks about what's going on in this video, I thought I would tell you that this video I recorded back in like July or June of 2019. So it's been a bit over half a year, and so I completely forgot I had it. And then I was reviewing, I randomly found, I was like clearing out my storage on my laptop and I found this footage, and I rewatched the video and I was like, this is still a good video. And I was like, the content covered in it is still good, so I chose that I still want to upload it. It's very late, and some of the things I refer to in this video will seem kind of off. I'll talk about things like, I'll say last year's Worlds, which I mean 2018, and then I'll say things about like, you know, I even mentioned that we don't know Gauntlet Buster's skill at the time, so you know, it's really far back. And then some of the things like illustrations I mentioned here and there might seem a bit like outdated, but I think the video content as a whole is still pretty good, so I hope you guys can enjoy it. And yeah, there's going to be one more video I found like this that I want to reuse, but I think you guys will like it. Maybe I'll record the second one again just to make it a bit more updated and using the new camera, you know, that I'm using right here. But regardless, I hope you guys can enjoy this video as well. Looking at the title, you might have thought to myself, wait, hasn't this guy been playing Vanguard since the start? Why would he need to get into Premium? Well, this is a mixed and a somewhat interesting story of how I went from almost ignoring the format to being heavily invested into it. Welcome aboard. It's late at night. I'm pretty tired, but we gotta do this. So today I'm going to talk about the reason why and how I got into Premium and what I appreciate about it. Hopefully, you know, spreading the good knowledge and getting some other people into it. So if you are interested, this might just be the video for you. Now let me kind of go over my kind of path since the reboot. So I've been an avid player in the G format. You know, I really do love G as a whole. And so like it would be weird, right, for me to not have been playing Premium from the start, but in the end I didn't. The reason why I didn't is because when the reboot got announced, the thing that clicked in my mind was, oh, the standard format can be used to spread the game and get more people into it. So then I was like, well, I need to focus on standard for now, both in terms of content creation and playing, because in terms of content creation, it was like, well, if I make more standard content, more of the new players will be interested in it, they'll see it, it'll give them kind of a first kind of boost in terms of getting into it, and so I felt like it was a good idea. And I think it was a good idea for me to focus on standard at the start, because hopefully I did help some players get into it, or help them kind of like get into the more competitive scene of things as well. However, the other factor is that I used to have a nice local community here in Luxembourg, and it did die at some point in G. And so once the reboot got announced, I was like, I can use this to revive my locals. And so then I started, you know, advertising our caravan and then trying to get as many people into it. And we did basically revive my locals to an extent. We're still pretty small, like our usual shop tournaments are between like 5 or 6 to like maximum 10 people, so it's not really that big, but it's still something, and having a tournament every 2 weeks is really nice. So I really focused everything into standard because I was like, this is how I'm going to revive my local community, and this is what is going to be the most applicable to these new players getting into Vanguard with the reboot. So I felt like it was the optimal choice. Now, with Premium, I basically ignored it for a long time because it was just like not in my circles. Everyone was like around me was playing standard, apart from like some friends, or like Solemn Vanguard included. And then so I basically really only kept up with the meta. I was looking at the decks, you know, I was aware of like NLK and stuff, but I didn't have any experience like playing against it until very late into the meta and stuff like that. So realistically, until like December, I think that's when I started to care a bit more about Premium, because it was like, well, I'm commentating Worlds, I need to know what's going on. So then I practiced a lot, I played quite a bit, just to make sure that I'm up to date with everything and know how things work. And so that was an important part of what helped me get into Premium. Now, another thing is that I did attend one Premium event in the BCS season last year, and that was in London. And in London, I basically, you know, I didn't playtest all that much for standard even, but for Premium it was literally zero. I did no playtesting. You know, I did like my first stride in like half a year or something. It was pretty ridiculous. And so because of that, it was pretty bad. I mean, I won a couple games here and there, but I lost a lot of the matchups that I feel like I could have won with some practice, and my deck choice wasn't really that great, and I feel like everything just wasn't all that great. And I feel like if I could go back, I would do that differently, and I would have focused a bit more at the time to actually be brushed up for the event. Now, once Worlds rolled around and I was sitting down for commentating, I was obviously prepared in terms of talking about the decks, but then the creativity that came through at Worlds, especially in the final match, to me really solidified DifferentFight, I was like, wow, people can really do a lot of crazy things in Premium. Like, it felt like it was a solved meta, it was Azel and nothing else, and you know, Azel NLK or anything else you take just has to be a counter to those two, or just like, you know, something unthinkable, and the unthinkable happened, you know, it was both a counter and the unthinkable to me. It wasn't just Gridora, it was Dark Face Gridora, you know, it was Dark Face bolded and then Gridora, you know, in small letters. But to me, it showed me how creative this format can be, and you don't have to play the top dog deck to do amazing, but having insane knowledge of the format and knowing how to play against the decks can really push you through, and thus being creative as well does actually reward you to an extent as well. And so this basically inspired me. This was the first big push. Like, I was already playtesting here and there, you know, playing with my decks, you know, I had my premium DP on me at all times, but this was what inspired me, made me start thinking about it more, and I was like, well, I need to start thinking about Springfest, what I'm going to play, you know, maybe what I'm going to play for BCS coming up, you know, in later this year. And so I started to think about what decks I actually enjoy in, you know, throughout G. You know, I always had like Gabriel, you know, all the DP decks, like Victor, Vanquisher as well. And so then, I think after the NLK limit, the meta started to freshen up. It was a lot of Azel still, but you know, like Azel became, over time with more and more support, it became more of a skill-based deck. But to me, what actually helped me even more was that I then realized, I was like, wait, I haven't actually done anything on the Gridora Ultima loop, which I really enjoyed playing at the end of G. Like, it felt like it was like this 200 IQ deck that you had to like really understand to play, but I playtested it so much before the reboot. Like, I really played the hell out of that deck. I enjoyed it so much. And then I was like, well, nobody covered it in this year that it's been out, so I was like, I guess I'll just do it and make it into 2 videos, with one being a deck profile, one being a combo explanation. And then people liked that, and people actually like played it, and then it topped at one point. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then the fact that this like relatively creative deck that I had to salvage, you know, from my memories, because I couldn't remember how it even worked when I started working on it, like the fact that it then did something, was like, wow, that is really cool. And so then I started thinking about my own stuff, you know, going into the future. And then I was like, I wish I bought the $50 Luar deck that went on sale when like the reboot got announced and people were like selling off their decks super fast. I really wish I picked up some of those meta decks, because I was like, I kind of want to go more competitive in this format, you know, it really feels more serious. And so then, you know, a few months rolled over and around, and then at some point Premium Collection got announced, and I was like, wow, they're actually giving proper support to Premium on top of that. And I think that's what really was like the icing on the cake for me. That's what really converted me fully. I was like, I want to focus on Premium. I was like, this is the game format that I really want to enjoy. And then I still enjoy Standard a lot. Obviously, like in my locals, we play a lot of Standard. Some of the Standard players are interested in trying out Premium too, just because like they see what's happening and they're like, well, I want to try that too, you know, I want to see what's actually going on here and learn more about the game and what actually it has available. And I think for a lot of people that's a shared sentiment. Like, after playing a lot of Standard for the last year, they might think, well, this game has a lot of other depth and a lot of other things to offer, why don't I explore that or give it a try? And I think for a lot of people, I really recommend that. I think it's worth to try out what Premium has to offer before actually judging it. Like, see how Stride actually plays out, how much your decisions matter, whether you give damage to your opponent or not, whether you're able to survive before first Stride or not, you know, these kind of interesting things. And like, you know, all your decisions really matter, and that's really rewarding when you know when to make those decisions. And so with Premium Collection, there was just so many cool decks that suddenly came up. Like, we went from this like Anj meta, you know, Anj like Azel meta, I guess you could say, with like Dominate kind of being under there as well, to this like super diverse, obviously very changed because first tries became so strong that grade 2 gaming came back properly, to like, but even considering that, like, there's just so many interesting decks going on right now, and with the future support coming up, I'm sure some of the decks at the top will be solidified, like OTT getting more support, Shadows getting more support, obviously that will help. But, you know, decks like Royals that aren't like necessarily top dog of Premium, getting a bit more support might actually pull them a bit further, and so I think that's something to be excited about too. For me personally, it was like Premium Collection combined with the Heroic Justice, where I started thinking about, okay, what can I do with DP here? Or like, you know, obviously Premium Collection wasn't that good for most of my decks, like Vanquisher, basically nothing, Gabriel, basically nothing, you know, it was pretty sad. But then Victor got Bustered, and to me, like, at first I was like hyping Bustered like crazy, and then I was like, but this deck relies on a lot of pieces and a very like specific scenario to set up, maybe it's not that good. And then I playtested it a lot and I was like, I'm winning a lot of games, and I'm doing actually pretty good, and even if I don't have all the pieces, the deck still does really amazing things, and it's like, I feel like my deck's actually turning pretty well. And so, even with Victor, I'm having the time of my life. I'm enjoying Victor more right now in Premium than I ever did in G, I think, because in G it always was this kind of side deck that for some reason I couldn't bring myself to enjoy as much as I do now. Right now it's literally one of my favorite decks to own, and so I'm really, really happy with it. And now, you know, combined with that, like, more, like, bigger investment and interest in the format, I've obviously been brewing my own ideas. Like, I've been thinking about how can I build DP better? How can I make DP and Premium better? What can I do with Victor that makes it, you know, just go a little bit over that little threshold to really be part of those top decks? What can I do with my decks to actually make them better? And the thing that results from that is that it's not a one-person process. A lot of people have playtesting groups, or like these kind of like just groups, or like, you know, your friends and locals that you'll exchange these ideas with and be like, okay, well, I want to, what's my last grade 2 slot for when I'm playing Victor? Like, am I gonna go for something like the Kick once it comes out? Do I keep Brutal Jack because of its like double restand with the riser behind it? Like, what do I do in this scenario? And you bounce off these ideas with each other. Like, you discuss these different like plays and paths and decision trees, which sure, they'll come to standard at some point, but because the card count for standard is quite low at the moment, it might take another year or so. It's already starting though. Like, people discuss like between like the end or the great, or like in like a die-liner deck, people discuss the grade 3 lineup very seriously. But it's like in Premium you have a whole array of things to talk about, and that really attracted me. And now having my own little group of like circle where we discuss ideas, even if we don't play each other's clans, we can bounce off ideas. We can proxy test or test on CFA and see how things work out. And so trying out these different things and learning from each other is a really big part of it for me. That's why I enjoyed G so much, and so being able to enjoy that again in Premium is honestly really fun and a really big motivator. So those are basically my reasons for getting into Premium. So this was kind of like, you know, how I got into it and why I enjoy it. It's a lot of different reasons, and it's a whole kind of like journey really. But from here on out, like, I want to focus on Premium. I don't know if I'll end up picking up like super meta decks, but I think like I'll always enjoy the decks that I play. Like, throughout G, I enjoyed Victor, Gavriel, like DP, and like Vanquisher 2 to an extent. Like, those 4 decks I really enjoyed. I hope Narukami comes back at some point. At the time of recording this, I don't know the Gauntlet Buster skill, but the, you know, just being able to enjoy the game with my favorite decks, and the fact that the optimal decisions are what make or break, you know, the game format with a lot of these like tier 2 decks is really encouraging. Like, that fact that I can take a tier 2 deck to a big event and actually expect to do relatively well as long as all my decisions are like on the right, you know, on the right trajectory, then I'll probably do fine. And that's really encouraging, because it feels like, you know, at other times of this game, it was really just like you played the best deck or you don't, like, or you don't play at all, basically. And so that's a really encouraging thing, and I like Premium a lot for that reason, and I think it's definitely something worth to put attention towards. So that's been my video on how I got into Premium. Let me know what you guys think, whether you are tempted to get into Premium, whether you had this kind of similar experience of like converting from Standard into Premium, or like being a G player that first, you know, went through Premium, or first went through Standard and then Premium, or if you don't even play Premium, what do you think of it? Obviously keep it civil. I don't want any kind of like wars or you know, bad blood in here. Like, I just want to have a healthy discussion. So please do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll try to read and respond to as many of them as possible, and check out the stuff in the description too. So that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.